The Echoes of Aincrad demo has finally arrived, and as someone who grew up reading and watching Sword Art Online, I was genuinely excited to jump in and see what the developers had been cooking. Honestly, I came away more impressed than I'd expected. There are definitely things that still need work, but there's also a surprising amount of care and ambition here. So let me walk you through what this game has to offer and help you decide whether this game is worth your time. The story begins with you logging into Aincrad and reuniting with familiar faces. After an hour or so of tutorials, you gradually introduced to the game's mechanics and the world around you. What stood out to me wasn't necessarily the plot itself, but how much effort went into making Aincrad feel alive. For years, we watched the anime and read the novels, but we only saw pieces of this world. Echoes of Aincrad finally gives us the chance to experience what life inside Aincrad actually feels like. The towns, the landmarks, NPCs all carry little bits of history and lore that make exploration rewarding. It feels less like rushing through floors and more like living inside them. Combat immediately reminded me of Souls-like game. Everything revolves around stamina management, attacking, dodging, blocking, positioning all require careful timing. You have access to light and heavy attacks, and both serve different purposes. Heavy attacks are excellent for breaking enemy guards, allowing you to follow up with quicker attacks. However, having swings leave your characters vulnerable for a moment afterward, similar to the recovery period after using sword arts in the anime. This means timing and positioning matter, especially during boss encounters. Bosses have multiple health bars, and one is depleted, you will notice blue rings appear. Letting a heavy attack at that moment leads to a devastating finisher, or as I prefer to call it, ribbon tear. Sorry, Doomsday instincts kicked in for a second there. Combat isn't limited to basic attacks either. You can chain light and heavy attacks together into your own combinations. When enemies perform certain attacks marked by a blue flash, you can trigger a reversal swing. Think of it as a parry that lets you punish your opponents immediately with your sword. And if you don't want to fight alone, companions you meet throughout your journey can accompany you as well. This is probably where the game surprised me the most. The world is absolutely massive. The developers clearly wanted players to explore parts of Aincrad that anime and novels never had time to fully showcase. Hidden landmarks contain stories and historical details, while NPCs provide their own perspective on life inside Aincrad. There is an incredible sense of scale. Safe areas functions much like the bonfires in Dark Souls. Resting causes enemies to respawn, reveals surrounding map information, and highlights nearby treasures. If you ever lose your way, you can always follow your previous route on the map, or simply look for the blue pillar of light marking a safe zone. There is a lot of running involved, but feels like a sightseeing trip through Aincrad. Crafting feels rewarding. Materials gathered throughout the world can be used by merchants to create items, often for much cheaper than buying items directly from merchants themselves. Because of that, gathering resources during exploration is always worthwhile. Armor pieces are crafted once, but weapons can be forged multiple times since upgrading requires sacrificing other weapons. Even better, X mods, which you can think of it as a bonus stats, can be transferred between weapons, allowing you to customize your favorite gear instead of constantly replacing it. The growth system is one of my favorite aspects of the game. Every stat contributes toward different playstyles, allowing you to specialize or create an all-rounder. Want to be a tank? Go ahead. Prefer a fragile but devastating damage dealer? That's possible too. There isn't really a right or wrong way to build your character. Ultimately, success comes down to the player holding the controller, or keyboard or mouse, whichever makes you feel comfortable. One feature I didn't expect to appreciate as much as I did was the database. Characters, monsters, items, equipment, and landmarks you encountered are all recorded at the end. For lore lovers, this is such a fantastic function. It almost feels like the game wants players to become tourists within Aincrad, discovering details that weren't explored in the original source material. The soundtrack deserves praise as well. Whether you're relaxing in town or fighting for your life against powerful enemies, the music does a great job supporting the atmosphere. Peaceful tracks makes the town feel welcoming, while battle themes add tension without becoming overwhelming. Combined with a beautiful environments, the game really captures the sense of adventure that made many of of us fall in love with Aincrad in the first place. Of course, despite all the positives, there are several issues I noticed. Oddly enough, you can't adjust your build while resting in outdoor safe zones. Changing equipment and allocating stats requires returning to an inn, which feels unnecessarily restrictive. Some cutscenes have noticeably audio synchronization issues. The timing between voices and mouth movement occasionally feels off, which can be distracting. I also wish there were options to manually advance the dialogue or let it autoplay. During live streams, some important messages disappear so quickly that I barely have time to read them, which is still on me. Returning to town during quests appears to count as abandoning them. I haven't fully tested this because I didn't want to risk losing progress, but I think allowing temporary returns for better gear and supplies would improve the experience. The UI itself looks nice, but transitions between menus can feel sluggish. Hopefully there will be options to speed them up in the final release. The world is huge, but you will encounter many familiar enemy types with only slight variations. Combined with the amount of exploration required, repetitive combat may become tiring for some players. Currently, only 2 floors are available. Given the scale and the amount of assets required, that makes sense. However, it raises question about future support. Will additional floors be free updates? Would it be a paid DLC? How quickly can they develop while staying faithful to Reki Kawahara's world? I don't know the answer, but I hope the developers continue supporting the game because I genuinely see a lot of potential here. Now, who will enjoy this game? You will probably enjoy Echoes of Aincrad if you're a Sword Art Online fan, you enjoy JRPGs and exploration, you like taking your time and discovering lore, you enjoy character progression and crafting, you appreciate Souls-inspired combat without excessive difficulty, you simply want to experience what living inside Aincrad might have felt like. To those who might not enjoy it, this game is not for you if you dislike Sword Art Online, you prefer fast-paced action with little downtime, you hate large maps and exploration, repetitive enemies bother you, you want constant story progression without side content, you're expecting Elden Ring level combat depth, and you dislike grinding and RPG systems. My final thought, at the end of the day, games are investments. It's your money, and ultimately, you decide what kind of experience you're looking for. For me, Echoes of Aincrad feels less like a game trying to retell the anime and more like an attempt to let players live inside Aincrad itself. It isn't perfect by any means, and there are definitely rough edges that need polishing. But after playing the demo, I walked away feeling excited rather than disappointed. And honestly, that's something I haven't felt from a SAO game in quite some time. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Hopefully this review helped you decide whether Echoes of Aincrad is worth keeping on your radar. As always, happy gaming, adventurers.